What is nastier than people realize? Ice machines in restaurants. This is why you want to buy packaged ice from large facilities. The ice machines are built very differently and the facilities are inspected and better kept. Source: Industrial Refrigeration Mechanic. I read an article of a study of bowling alleys. Researchers found higher than expected amounts of fecal matter in the finger holes of the common balls. So there was an expectation, and that got blown out of the water. Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Thanks to drug company ads, most people think it's just about going to the bathroom a few times a day. There's never any mention of fissures, fistulas, fevers, extreme pain, extreme fatigue, depression, anemia, drug side effects, joint pain, painful and horrific surgeries, mouth sores, skin disorders, etc. Absolutely this. My partner discovered early in our relationship that he likely has an autoimmune disorder as well, and it's been so lovely having someone who understands the struggle rather than writing off or dismissing things like joint pain. Soda fountains at any restaurant, fast food or otherwise. Source: traveled around the US repairing and replacing them. Will only ever get bottled water. I used to own a Quiznos. We cleaned the soda fountain nightly. Took apart the nozzles, soaked them in soapy water, whipped everything down, drain and all. Never did clean the syrup lines though. The kitchen sink and the area immediately surrounding it. I'm a subcontractor and have done a few bathroom renovations. The bathroom sink's drains are absolutely rancid. I have a machine called an ADP meter. It indicates how much bacteria/living organisms are on a swabbed surface. These special swabs soaked in an adenosine triphosphate mixture that reacts with living organisms, causing it to emit low levels of photons, light. What you would do is swab the area, activate the swab by breaking the ADP vial to release the chemical onto the swab. You then stick the vial and swab into the machine that measures how much the solution glows. The higher the luminance, the more organisms on your sample. I swabbed the drain area/disposal inlet. That area of the kitchen sink was so full of bacteria, it read outside the max range of the machine. I even shoved another swab up my behind to read as a control sample. The kitchen sink was off the scale even compared with the control sample. At least the control sample read within the min/max ranges of the device. Keyboards and phones. Came here to say phones. One time I was in line at a food service place, think Chipotle style, where you tell them what you want and they make it behind the counter. There was this sweaty door dasher guy who couldn't really articulate the order, so he hands his phone to the kid behind the counter. The kid proceeds to take his phone, starts swiping and touching it without gloves on, and goes right back to touching people's food. Disgusting. Dementia, especially advanced dementia. It's not just quirky memory problems, your brain controls every bodily function. It's a terrible disease and it's impossible to completely explain what it's like to deal with. Wouldn't wish it on anyone. Cancer. People know it's nasty. People know it's nasty as all hell. But here's the thing. Going through it myself, I could have never imagined how nasty it truly is. I watched my mom fight stage 4 ovarian cancer 18 years ago. I'm 40 right now for reference. She was so far along, and so riddled with the cancer that she was given weeks to live, and sent away from 3 oncologists who told her to check into hospice and prepare for the end. Thankfully she found an oncologist, who is mine now, who took her in, and went to war with her. They cut her open from the chest down, and spent hours plucking tumors out of her while rearranging her internal organs. Taking out the bad stuff and building what he could with what was left. Then 2 long rounds of chemo. Hospital visits. Illness left and right. Side effects. Recovery. It was hell for her, but she beat the odds and lived. Watching this, I understood what I could. I saw the pain, but now, going through it myself, couldn't possibly comprehend how bad it truly was. I saw the illness, the nausea, the neuropathy, all the stupid side effects that hit you for no reason at all. So yeah, cancer. Every knows it's nasty, but man, is it even worse than that. You're not kidding. My father was the strongest man in the world to me. He seemed invincible. Not only was he physically strong, but he was internally strong too. He was intelligent, open-minded, he had the most beautiful personality, the kindest heart. He always made me smile and laugh, he taught me new things daily, he listened to me, he supported me emotionally, he loved me and made every effort to foster a healthy relationship with me. He was a hero in my eyes. Yet, at age 37 I watched him succumb to cancer, and it was the most horrifying thing I have ever witnessed. I was only 9 and it really screwed me up seeing him get sicker and sicker. No matter how weak he got, he was always the strongest person in the whole world to me. I spent a lot of nights laying on his chest in his hospital bed, watching cartoons together. Cancer is nasty. I'm really sorry for what you and your mother have been and are going through. Your mother was strong and beat the monster, and I believe you have her strength within you as well. I wish you healing and a life full of health and happiness. Luggage. It gets rolled throughout the world, often in gross airport bathrooms where floors are literally wet with pee, and then when people get to their destination, their first thing they do is toss it on the bed to unpack. Come to think of it, this also makes hotel comforters that never get washed even more disgusting. I asked TSA how often the X-ray conveyor belt machines get cleaned. They looked at me dead in the eye and said, never. Then they said, trust me, the bins are worse. OCD. It's not some goofy personality quirk. It's hell on earth. I live this. Scary as hell, and each year it creeps a little further and further towards debilitating. Taking more and more of the person I loved bit by bit. Being a caregiver. Again, people know it might be nasty, but I think they still overlook the awful experience it is for people who are caring for an elderly person. My mom took care of my bedridden grandmother for 3 years. The amount of poop everywhere, she had chronic diarrhea, and I don't know if it's just me, but old people's poop smells like something of other realm. Awful BO, even when we were cleaning her constantly, the difficulty of changing diapers/sheets/covers as constantly as she needed, at least 2 times during the night. So what I meant is that sometimes people think is nice from certain daughter/son to take care of their old parents, at least in my country where putting your parents in facilities is not common. But it's just such an intense, nerve-wracking, hard and disgusting job, with no breaks, with little rewards, because at least my grandma was not in her right mind, and almost no social recognition, that it blows my mind how underappreciated it is. Your watch strap. Mine is white and the notches for the buckle go all the way around, and every week I have to clean out all the lint and build up to stop it going funky. Makes me shudder at the idea of other watch straps where it may not be as obvious. Shoes. They are filled with sweaty feet and go everywhere. Think about the gas station and airport bathrooms. The bathrooms you can feel the ick in. Restaurant menus. Most people don't think about how many people touch them and how often they are cleaned. A doctor's necktie. If your doctor wears a necktie, it's been in the presence of every sick patient he's been in, and it never gets washed. Goodwill. I don't just mean the merchandise but also their interests. I work in one currently. I have been there for a year. I am disabled and I have a hard time finding and keeping jobs. Goodwill has a reputation of hiring the disabled, so with my job coach, I eventually got hired, and I was excited to get started. The whole thing didn't start well. My quick 2-minute training was barely enough to explain what I needed to do. I don't remember things well, and I had a hard time understanding the system. I would have to ask my coworkers constantly. Most of them don't know anything about my position. A few months later, we had 2 other disabled workers who received less training than I did. At least one of them is nonverbal. The other was instructed to watch me for 10 minutes to understand the job but didn't tell me. So I worked while someone just quietly whispered to themselves and stared at me. The scheduling was bad. I would be scheduled at the same time as the other 2 who shared my position. Sometimes, I would lose hours. Goodwill is not just bad at training, but they lack safety. Sometimes, people donate chemicals in all sorts of conditions, open or not, but you could still find them on the floor for sale. Most of the clothes had been on the floor, stepped on, and tossed would still be hung up and sold. The floors in the production area are covered with at least an inch of debris/dust/dirt. I found a dead rat once in my donation bin and placed some items from that bin into my sales cart. I asked if I should just toss those items, and I have been told no. They go out anyway. I have found bed bugs, and I got the same answer, but they did toss the rest of the items that weren't priced. I find a lot of small insects in donations, both living and dead. Goodwill tells me not to worry about it because they have exterminators that come in every so often. We had an accident with a man who was in between donation bins and the forklift. The forklift squeezed the worker enough to make him scream. I'm not sure why the driver didn't pay attention before choosing to pick up any of the bins. If you read around the internet, you'll find Goodwill has had many accidents with their forklifts. Goodwill managers don't care about their customers. They ignore customers by walking away from the sales floor to hide in the back or front offices. I have brought up problems to them in the past only to get a shrug or to leave it alone. I have been trying to leave, but even with my job coach, it's hard to find other employment. The fancy restaurant you are eating at was in restaurant supply for a fresh seafood product and in a whole lot of restaurant kitchens. Surprisingly, the mom and pop little restaurants were typically spotless, unlike what you see on TV. The larger, higher-end restaurants, doing a higher volume of plates were, oh my god. People actually eat here and pay those prices?